Several weeks ago, I committed myself to make a series of videos about experiences in my life. These events, some are traumatic, and then others are just the happenstance of life, things that have been done to me, things that I have done to people. I felt the need to start off with a very traumatic event when I was 4 years old. The situation with that particular individual didn't begin there. However, at that moment, that's probably one of the most psychologically traumatizing events that I have ever experienced in my life. However, it started when I was a child at birth up until I was 16 years old, and I sat down with their spouse on their couch and explained to them that everything that I had experienced from that individual was never a lie. No matter how many adults in the family explained to them that, oh, he's a troublemaker, he's causing problems, you can't believe him, he's a liar. So let's dedicate this video to anyone that's dealing with major depressive disorder, bipolarity 2, rapid cycling, and whether you're on medication or in therapy, never be embarrassed by that. Embrace it. It's your issues to deal with, and never allow anyone to undermine the level of psychological issues and the trauma that you have dealt with and what it does to you as an individual, and how every single day you have to not only remember those events. It's not a choice of yours. It is imprinted in your brain, and it has changed you as an individual. Too often in life, there are people that try to pass off psychological issues and depression as something that doesn't exist. It's only in your mind. I even dated an individual and tried to explain to them the situations that I have gone through, and I was told that it's stupid and it doesn't exist and you can deal with whatever you're dealing with. And I've had individuals in my life say, oh, well, you can just pray about it and it'll go away. No, it doesn't. Anyone that has truly gone through psychological trauma knows that no matter what you do, it will never go away. It's seared in your mind like a brand. So let's begin. When I was 4 years old, there was an individual that hated me so much that she felt the need to torment me from the time that I was a baby up until I was 16 years old. As a child, I have memories in diapers where this individual sat down with me and would tell me that my mom was a whore and that I was a bastard. I remember events and times when she would look at me with their spouse there that could not see the way she would speak to me, that I hate you. I will kill you. There are times when I was a child laying on the floor watching television. She would walk by and step on my feet and my ankles just to cause me pain. I would be in such psychological fear when I knew that I had to go stay there. I would cry. And the individual spouse would always tell me every time he comes, he always starts things and he causes problems, because everyone in that family would always tell not only me, but everybody else that I was a troublemaker and I was causing problems. But that wasn't the truth, because everything that I experienced was real. And at a very early age, I remember that I had to learn how to look at every detail in my environment and record that and make sure that I could reiterate every single thing that happened to me, because if I didn't, there was always someone that would lie about exactly what happened. When I was 4 years old, there was a very, like I said, defining moment in my life that I experienced psychological trauma that would never be comparable to anything else that I would ever experience. I have 3 kids. I have a 15-year-old, I have one that's almost 12, and I have a 19-month-old. I could not imagine any of my children ever experiencing this just one event. Just this one event, just that one situation from the time that I was born to the time that I was 16 Just that one situation, I could not even fathom them having to go through that, because that's what we're supposed to do as parents. We shelter our kids from the things that they should never have to experience. This individual took me when I was 4 years old and forced me into a closet, turned the light off because the switch was on the outside of the closet, and locked me in that closet and told me that the devil was going to pull out my eyeballs. I remember I sat there in so much psychological fear that I cried and I cried, and I must have sat there for hours before I stopped begging for my mom. Every single day, that moment plays in my mind over and over and over. And as I said, in 2019, it'll be 30 years later. It's unfortunate that things like that happen to children. But that was a very defining moment for me psychologically, because after I came out, I was never the same again. My level of trust in adults in general and people as humans was forever changed. And I've heard too often in life, be it secondhand or to my face, that there's something not quite right about you, or you're effed up. You don't know what people go through. You don't know what people have experienced that to them matters, that to them they will never forget. You don't know how that affects them emotionally. You don't know how that affects them socially. And as I said, when I came out, I was a completely different child because I sat there so long that the fear overwhelmed me. I remember the pain. I remember my brain shutting down because I was shell-shocked. And it was exactly like you see in the movies when a soldier has a bomb go off by them and you hear that ringing and then everything is a blur. But what your mind does is it shuts down and resets. And it makes you completely different psychologically after that point. Now, what did I learn from that? I learned that you could not trust any adult. I learned that you need to be aware of your environment and survival is necessary in this life. That made me a very pessimistic person as long as I lived. And yes, I have always been different as a child, as an adult, as a teenager. There's no denying that. Anyone who knows me knows that. And it made me a very dark individual. I spent 3 years in therapy, not just for that one incident, but as I said, it was a very defining moment for me psychologically for the rest of my life. So what I want you to take from that is there are people that have had worse traumatic events. There are other traumatic events in my life that I have experienced that I will get to one day. But to add to all of what I had experienced with that individual, is one situation is enough. And the sad thing is that I learned at a very early age that an adult can hate a child and can abuse a child because of that hate. And that is not something that an individual should ever have to live with. And I could not imagine my children ever having to have experienced anything on that level. For those of you that have had psychological trauma, you have experienced that, understand that I realize that every day you wake up with that pain and it doesn't go anywhere, no matter what you do with it. Now, you have a choice. You can let it break you down. There are days that I don't feel like getting up, going to work. There are days that I don't feel like washing one dish, folding one piece of clothes. And there are days that I don't do those things. However, you have to continue. You have to deal with it. So what it does is it creates, if you will, a metaphor, psychological demons in yourself. And you have a choice to embrace those or you have a choice to let them rule you. Either you're going to be ruler of your realm, or you're going to let those demons rule you. And what I did with those is I let them give me a drive that could have never in my entire life developed. I wanted to change everything in my surroundings, all of everything that I experienced daily, every single environment that I was exposed to, I wanted to control. Because I knew that if I was in control of it, that it would always be in my best interest. Now, I can tell you that when you experience situations like that, the only other people that will ever understand you are the people that have experienced things similar to you that could be defined as psychological trauma. And there are people that have been sheltered as children and as an adult that have never experienced anything that could be classified as psychological trauma. Hell, some people may experience psychological trauma as a teenager because they didn't get the car they wanted. But the issues that you deal with as an individual are yours to deal with. It's your experience. There are people that have worse stories that I have heard personally that have been told to me that were 10 times worse than my situation, and I cannot imagine what they have dealt with and what they deal with every day. But the one thing you need to understand is that what you're dealing with daily are people that have passed that you could not imagine what they've gone through. And you need to understand that how you treat these individuals and what they're dealing with, you can't simply write it off as, oh, that's stupid, or that doesn't make any sense. You can deal with it. You'll get over it. Pray about it. Do this, do that. Until you experience it and you're actually dealing with those issues, you will never understand.